This is the USS Montana, the second largest vessel in the North Atlantic Fleet. You will change course 15 degrees north, or I will be forced to take measures to ensure the safety of this ship. Over.
This is the Lighthouse, mate. It's your call. Hello, Captain.
Broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia, this is The FOMO Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a podcast where you'll hear about blockchain, cryptocurrency, emerging markets, and future tech in relatively plain English.
We'll help you stay across what's going on so you don't get the fear of missing out.
You can find us at FOMO.show or by searching for The FOMO Show on your platform of choice.
Episode 20.
Episode 20.
How keen is this?
We made it.
Celebrated with some cheese.
Yeah, we got some cheese, got some crackers, we got some prosciutto, we got some beer. We're having a party here in the FOMO studio.
Oh,
so, hope you've enjoyed the ride. We've really enjoyed the ride. Let us know. Let us know what your best memory of 20 episodes are.
Yeah, for everyone who's joined us, and even if you just joined us, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, and look, if you do want to be a part of the show, you can record a voice message in our Telegram and send it to us. So you can go to FOMO.show/Telegram. And that's our chat area. That's our chat program. But yeah, you can hear a bunch about what we're doing in there. You can have some good conversations. And yeah, if you want to be part of the show, send us a message on that.
Keen. So what are we talking about this episode?
So we've got an interview with Blockgrain. So I interviewed Blockgrain last week. They were in town for an event with Nuggets News, who some Australian people may know of. It's a YouTube channel that covers a lot of cryptocurrency and blockchain stuff. Blockgrain are an ICO that's targeted towards the agricultural industry. So they've been around for quite a long time. They've got a working product already. They've done some significant work in their industry already. I sat down with Kale, who's the CEO of Blockgrain, and we had a good little interview. We'll put that in towards the back end of the show. But what else are we talking about?
We're going to be covering a few little bits of news, a lot of interesting little stories this week. And also we're going to be talking about the IOTA Tangle. Some really exciting things going on there. So really looking forward to that. What have you been up to this week?
So I went to the meetup, the Blockgrain meetup, which we mentioned earlier, which was a really good night. Got to spend some time with the team before the meetup, just pick their brain a little bit about what they're wanting to do away from the scenes. Amazing. The meetup venue actually got changed, literally when we arrived at the hotel. Wow. So we ended up walking halfway back across Brisbane to another hotel. But we got there in the end, and yeah, it was a good turnout. About 100 people here in Brisbane probably showed up for the meetup, and some good conversations. And yeah, that was really good. And I was down in Melbourne last week, so giving another blockchain masterclass workshop down there for very orientated towards business with smart contracts. Melbourne's a cool city, man. And while I was down there, I got to go to the Blockchain Centre. Which is kind of like a hub they've built down there, a co-working space for all things blockchain. And I think NEM have their national headquarters down there, and there's a few other organisations that are based there. And I also saw one of our long-time listeners, James. We had this weird moment where I walked in and he was looking at me and I was looking at him, and I was like, I know you. And then he heard me interviewing I was talking to the NEM guys, and I was interviewing them, and I came out and he's like, are you Matt? I said, yeah. And he said, I recognise your voice, man. I'm James. I listen to the podcast. And he'd just been over at Consensus. Wow. And he had some great stories from there. Sounded like he had a really good time. So it was just a really good time down in Melbourne, man. And I'm excited to see whether we can get something like that up here in Brisbane, because it was they've got a really good thing going down.
There's
at Blockchain
some cool
Centre.
Artwork out the front from the photos.
Yeah, they've done it all up. Really cool. The staff are amazing. I literally tweeted at them half an hour before I arrived saying, hey, I'm in Melbourne, can I come check the place out? Wow. And they were straight back to me, yep, come. They looked after me.
That's awesome.
Just really, really hospitable. Yeah, so there'll be a couple of interviews going up on our YouTube pretty soon. We interviewed the NEM team from down in Melbourne.
Amazing.
We interviewed the Blockchain Centre team as well. Yes. And so we'll put the videos up, and we'll probably stick them in one of our other episodes going forward, because they're really good interviews. But if you do want to get in early, you can jump on our YouTube. Those interviews will probably go up soon. So
Amazing.
I had a great couple of weeks, mate. It was packed a lot in to a very small period of time. What have you been up to?
Mate, nothing anywhere near as exciting as that. That sounds awesome. Yeah, just seeing your photos when you were gone and like what was going on, mate. You had a proper adventure out there. I've been working. I've been doing a lot of reading the news. So I've been reading this Internet Trends report from KCPB, which is a venture capital firm. It comes out every year, the last day of May, and it's just hundreds of slides of just data of what's going on, adoption of mobile.
Wow.
You know, whether it's, Uber's travel numbers, just talking about all the trends and what's going on in the internet. Now, there's so much stuff in it. I was going to do a feature for this episode, but I haven't digested it fully yet. So that's been really exciting. I've been watching the EOS mainnet launch.
Yeah.
Very confusing. Well, I say
I've been
confusing.
refreshing my Reddit on my phone every half an hour to see if there's any new news. I made sure I got all my EOS into one account just before the mainnet launch, because it was kind of in a few different Ethereum accounts.
Wow.
And a lot of airdrops aren't. I think I asked you if you had like over 100 EOS, because a lot of airdrops aren't airdropping to people with less than 100 EOS.
Wow.
So I had to make sure I had everything in one account to, instead of having things in different accounts, make sure I got over the threshold. So. Yeah, but it's been really interesting. We don't know how it's going to play out. We've decided not to really do much on it tonight, just because we've decided not to do much on it this episode, just because we're not sure where things are going to end up.
Yeah.
But it's been really interesting watching the community come together and try and get the snapshot done, and then get the BIOS booted up.
Because it's not the company that's developing it that's releasing the mainnet.
No, it's not. And it was really funny. There was something that went up on Reddit today. It had like a photo of Dan Larimer, because he always pops into the Telegram chats. And Dan Larimer is the guy that essentially created EOS.
Yeah.
And one of the block producer representatives was there, and Dan said, "Oh, how's it going?" And the block producer representative said, "Oh, it's going pretty well. Would you like to have a look to make sure that we're getting everything right?" And Dan just wrote back, "No," and then had a little like smiley face with sunglasses on. So they're staying well away, just because the terms of the crowd sale and everything else was that they would just build the software, and the community would actually launch the platform, and that was really important to them for legal reasons, as well as just trying to get the community as involved as possible.
We're not going to hold on EOS too much longer, but if there's one takeaway that you've got for any listeners who have EOS and to do with this mainnet launch, what would it be?
Do not, under any circumstances, import your EOS account onto anyone's chain, or give anyone your private keys or any of your account details until you've first of all checked that the person that's saying you probably should is a reputable source. You've checked maybe 4 or 5 other sources to make sure that they're saying that source is a reputable source. And you've essentially done all your due diligence to make sure that what you're importing it into is actually legit, because there are going to be a lot of scams around, and they can be quite sophisticated. So I'd take a very cautious approach. You're not going to lose out on anything by not importing your EOS, because the snapshot they've taken is of the Ethereum accounts. So any airdrops that happen, you're not going to lose out if you don't import straight away.
So take your time.
Take your time. Let the dust settle. We'll try and update things on Twitter if we get the chance. If we see something good come from one of the block producers. But yeah, there's a few very good block producers out there. I just follow them on Twitter as well, just so you've got a bit of an update on what they're saying, and they're all being very cautious too. So just be careful out there. Don't lose your EOS.
Bit of disclosure. Is this investment or any other advice?
No, it's not. Look, new cryptocurrencies are popping up every day. It's hard to know which ones are legitimate and which aren't. We're not saying you should buy anything at all. We're not saying you should invest in anything at all, or build your platforms on anything at all. For full disclosure, we're personally invested in different cryptocurrencies, and we do talk about some of them on the show. So,
do your research, never invest more than you can afford to lose, and avoid the fear of missing out.
So if you're new around here and new to crypto, you can check out our Blockchain Basics series. It starts from episode 2 and continues until around episode 8. It'll give you some grounding in the fundamentals and help you understand what on earth we're talking about.
Amazing.
So what's going on in the news this week?
Mate, there's been a few different cool stories. The first one, just another little dig in the side of the existing financial system. A Visa system outage caused Europe-wide chaos. The Visa network was down for about 5 hours, starting around 2:30 p.m. on Friday in the UK. And Visa cardholders across Europe were unable to make purchases. There were people stuck at train stations, all kinds of things happening.
Yeah, so Visa apologised late on Friday, saying that it had fallen well short of its goal to ensure cards work reliably at all times. And major retailers had earlier confirmed that card purchases were failing, and there were queues building up all over the place at petrol stations and shopping. It was just
chaos.
It's just incredible to look at like how dependent people have become on this system, this very centralized system that no one really can audit, no one knows anything about, and the technology just failed.
It kind of reminds you when your ISP, when your internet provider goes down, especially on a weekend.
Yeah.
You're at the mercy of someone actually having a telecoms engineer who wants to come out on a Saturday at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
to repair stuff.
Yeah.
And you're meanwhile sitting at home crying. I mean, you probably don't get downtime where you're listening from, but in our country, Australia, goodness forbid, yikes. It's horrific.
We've got to say it. This wouldn't happen on a blockchain. You've got with a blockchain, you've got a distributed system, thousands and thousands of computers. It's open 24/7. There's never been a known outage of the Bitcoin network or the Ethereum network or anything like that. It just keeps going.
It's possible, but it's pretty unlikely.
It's just another, I guess, reinforcement of the fact that blockchain is a superior system for this kind of stuff.
Right, next piece. Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, are set to launch a $1 billion investment fund.
Yeah.
Have you read into this much?
Yeah, I haven't read into it a lot, but I did read a couple of articles on it. It's big, mate. Like, they said they're seeking 20 funds to invest in, which each manage a pool of at least 100 million in order to be eligible.
Wow.
So it seems like what they're doing is they're saying we've got all this money and we want other funds to join in that will specifically pick the different projects that they want to invest in. But Binance seem to be really pushing things forward. They've moved to Malta now, or they're relocating to Malta as we speak. And they seem to really want to push things forward. And they actually said, this was Ella Zhang, head of the exchange's incubator program. She said, "We believe it's a disruptive social experiment. Binance Labs hopes to work with more aspirational projects to explore blockchain applications and together move forward with the growth of the industry."
So they're not sitting around waiting to just sort of die out.
No, and it's incredible seeing an exchange do this,
Wow.
because most exchanges just kind of take your money
Yeah.
and make a lot of profits and haven't really done. They'll invest in their own infrastructure, but you don't see them doing a lot to invest in other projects. I think Eric Voorhees' Shapeshift and that group of products, I think they're probably the exception. They do seem to invest a bit more back into the community, but this is really cool to see because it's $1 billion too. Like it's not a small amount of money.
What I thought was interesting is that it's a combination of a fund of funds, and it's also got a direct fund that invests in blockchain projects. So they're not just relying on their own know-how.
Yeah.
They're reaching out to all these other funds and saying, look, we want to capitalize on your knowledge and your investment prowess to spot some other things. So they're really casting their net wide.
So next bit of news, the Bank of England has issued a working paper on central bank digital currencies. And this is one you picked up, Joe, from Zero Hedge.
Yeah. So it's saying that central banks are progressively studying the introduction of central bank digital currencies and their potential impact on the banking system. You had, like, the other week, Norway's central bank issued a working paper on them, and then the Federal Council of the Government of Switzerland even requested a report on the risks and opportunities. But interesting, in this Bank of England report, they were sort of looking at the different ways that it could be used. And it's interesting to think that they're all scoping it out.
And I think the key takeaway from all that for me was that they're still very much trying to fit the old model into the new model, and that seems to be where they're focusing their efforts there. And this is a race to see whether a truly decentralized currency can kind of gain ascendancy, or a bunch of decentralized currencies, or we're going to see these centralized institutions adapt and adopt the technology and present it in such a way that they cut costs, they cut settlement times, they give you a lot of the benefits you get from a cryptocurrency without the decentralization and openness. None of these models open in the way that Bitcoin is open or Ethereum's open, because a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or whatever else, you don't need a central bank. You just don't. So the models they're proposing here are kind of their effort to scramble
and it ties them in very specifically too.
Yeah, it does, and it's right there in the names. Even the economy-wide access model, which they've said there, everything goes through the central bank. Everything's controlled and issued by the central bank.
Well, I mean, how else would you print money out of thin air?
That's right.
Airdrops for everyone.
Yeah. So that's definitely one to watch. But, we're naive if we think they're not working on it. Yeah. Next bit of news. The BTCC founder tweeted that 95% of ICOs are database projects. And this was... So Bobby Lee tweeted recently, he said, "People don't realize that blockchain should be distinct and different from databases invented decades ago. Bitcoin's real blockchain was only invented in 2009. Everyone using a digital ledger is calling it blockchain without regards to functionality. Complete intellectual dishonesty."
He then went on to tweet, "The most commonly ignored aspect of a blockchain is that all data going into the blockchain needs to be independently and publicly verifiable and thus insertable by anyone. Otherwise, it's just private data where you are the sole judge and author, and therefore that's a centralized database."
Yeah.
That's what he tweeted. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm completely sympathetic to that attitude, because the amount of projects that you'll look at, especially ICOs, where they've essentially just taken like a centralized use case and chuck the word blockchain in it, and then you read into it and you're like, well, but this is still centralized. Like, you're still forcing everyone to go through your project, and you're still hosting all the nodes, or you might let some other people host the nodes, but it's all under your framework. And they're definitely correct in the fact that most of these ICOs are just running database projects with blockchain waxed onto it. I mean, do you agree?
100%. 100%. I read his tweets and I thought, yeah, that's a great points he's making. And I mean, it does feel so scammy when you're looking at it. I mean, we're running a podcast on this stuff, but you look out on Twitter. I mean, obviously, that's like judging a town by walking through the red light district. Yikes! Like, it's absolutely filth. It just feels so scammy.
But this is why we've avoided talking about a lot of ICOs too. For you listeners, you'll notice that we don't cover a lot of these ICO projects simply because we're not comfortable covering them because they are so scammy. If you want scalability and you want speed, go for your life on a centralized database. I don't think we're ever going to get to how fast a centralized database is with a blockchain. But if you want immutability, trustlessness, and decentralization, then a blockchain makes more sense.
Mate, this is a cool little piece. The Tron founder, Tron is one of those massive, big crypto token things that's out there. They've raised, I think it's over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Their founder is reportedly looking to acquire Bittorrent Incorporated. Now, this is coming out of torrentfreak.com, which is quite a good news source, actually. So Justin's son, his plans for Bittorrent Incorporated remain unclear. He's not spoken about the acquisition in public, obviously, but it's likely that it will be used to the advantage of Tron. Now, what is interesting is Tron have stated that their plans are to decentralize the internet. And with BitTorrent being, this peer-to-peer file-sharing network, whether this deal goes through or not, it sounds pretty plausible. BitTorrent is just the right sort of architecture to sort of build that on.
It could only be good for them.
Mate, next piece, you sent me the link to this, and it was so cool. I had a little read through it. It was to do with deep learning networks. And what was it? Convolutional neural networks, CNNs. What's this story all about?
Yeah, so this is a new deep learning algorithm that people have been, or it's a network actually that's been in development, and the purpose of it is to look at photos of people's skin and see if they can diagnose. They can get this neural network essentially to diagnose skin cancer. And what they've found is that after training this, they've done it in concert with some dermatologists, and they keep showing this CNN more and more images of different people, they've found that the CNN was able to accurately detect 95% of skin cancers from the images, while the dermatologists were only able to identify around 86.6.
It's fascinating how you train neural networks. They basically got more than 100,000 images of malignant and benign skin cancers and moles and stuff, and basically attached to each image is like almost a tag saying this was skin cancer, this was not skin cancer. And then you just chuck all these images into a neural network.
Yeah.
And you're just getting it to train.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a child, and then suddenly it's like a toddler.
Yep.
And then, they're just, these things are getting better and
then
better.
suddenly it's buying military hardware online and arming an army.
I need to actually rewatch those films.
War
as well,
Games.
Oh, mate.
And Terminator, too.
But yeah, War Games, man. That was such a good film.
Yeah.
I remember that from childhood.
Yeah.
Oh.
Matthew Broderick.
The Netherlands Land Registry is looking to test a blockchain solution for real estate.
Yeah, so the Land Registry is tasked with overseeing ownership, mortgage rights, and all third-party data related to the national property market. And it's reportedly seeking to explore the technical, legal, and governance aspects of blockchain as part of its efforts to create a more flexible and agile organisation.
So, an enterprise architect at the Land Registry revealed that the registry is also experimenting with artificial intelligence for predictive data systems. So, there's a lot of cool stuff that the Netherlands are doing with tech. And it's cool seeing that that's how it's starting.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. Like, if you want to have if you buy a house, at the moment, your land title essentially rests in some library somewhere on a piece of paper, and if your country is lucky enough to have upgraded a little bit, they may have that like in digital form, and you can pay $20 or it's $20 here in Queensland to retrieve that from like the land titles registry. But it's all on the government servers, so if there's a fire and then the server gets knocked out, it would be absolute chaos, like trying to piece back together the land registry. So if you're a homeowner or you're a mortgager or you're a bank or you're even the government, if you can instead start storing that on some kind of distributed, decentralized solution, which is redundant, where there's multiple copies held all over the world in some kind of encrypted form, that would make sense.
Mate, this is a terrifying one. Ditch your Alexa devices. Well, or keep them if you really like welcoming our robot overlords. So a Portland, Oregon couple received a phone call from one of the husband's employees earlier this month, telling them she'd just received a recording of them talking privately in their home. Unplug your Alexa devices right now, the colleague told the couple, who did not wish to be fully identified. You're being hacked. At first, the couple thought it might have been a hoax call. However, the employee, over 100 miles away in Seattle, confirmed the leak by revealing that the pair had just been talking about hardwood floors. Now, Amazon released a statement being like, look, Alexa had this miraculous mistake where it thought you said, phone somebody, and Alexa would have said, okay, who would you like to call? And then it mistook another thing from their conversation as, oh, cool, this colleague, what's name? And then Alexa would have been like, okay, initiating call, and phoned them.
Right.
What is weird is that your audio data is being streamed somewhere.
Yeah. To some service.
Here it was apparently because they initiated a phone call purely by accident. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm never buying one of these for my house. I already have an always listening phone, which is more than enough. But whether that's an accident or not, that is not right. Just the idea that everything you're saying is being streamed live somewhere else. Not a fan.
No.
Are you a fan?
I'm not a fan at all. It's like having a wiretap in your house.
Yeah. Mate, this last piece is probably the most exciting piece.
Yeah, mate, hit us. What is it?
So, Lamborghini's Terzo Millenio, I can't even do Italian language justice. This new electric concept car, it's a concept car at this stage, it won't have a battery. It will be a battery.
Hey?
So working alongside the best minds at MIT, Lamborghini has developed a groundbreaking method of storing energy in parts made of carbon fiber, essentially turning the entire car's body into a rechargeable battery of sorts. Now, what I would suggest is that you look at the pictures in this article. It's in our show notes. The Terzo Millenio from Lamborghini. It kind of looks a bit too futuristic, I heard someone tell me yesterday. But
Looks like a Batmobile.
yeah. And as they're saying, it's way too soon to expect this technology to find itself in automobiles. Their head of research, I think it was saying add a few more years for industrialization or whatever. And you could see this ultra futuristic technology in its first ever EV hit the road by 2030.
Right.
But by 2030, we could have cars that they're not having massive battery packs.
And they'll all be automated. So what's the point in having a Lambo?
Oh, it's so true. You're only going to go 0 to 60 and then never above 60 because why would you? Because it's against the law. And oh, mate.
And you'll probably be flying through the air anyway.
Mate, this is good. This is very good. So we're getting an update about IOTA.
So we talked about IOTA way back in episode 6. And if you don't know what IOTA is, go back there. We do our best to explain it back there. And it's very different to most of the other blockchain projects because it's not a blockchain, really. It's what's called a decentralized or a directed acyclic graph. And we talked about that too back in episode 18.
Yeah.
So you can go back and listen to that episode as well if you need some more background on what a directed acyclic graph is, or a DAG. But IOTA are essentially trying to be a mesh network for IoT devices. So you'll know now that your fridges are starting to come with little computers, toasters, there's a lot of heat sensors that are IoT enabled devices, and what it allows you to do is to essentially connect all your devices together in one big network. And IOTA are trying to build a system where that is all decentralized, it's immutable, it's trustless, similar to how a blockchain works. And Qubic is their new project.
So what's Qubic all about?
Yeah, so Qubic is essentially, from my reading of it, and this is really fresh news, so I think this all got released today or yesterday, it's very new. Essentially, it's IOTA trying to bring in a lot of the features and functionality we know from other platforms like Ethereum and NEM and Neo and EOS. So they want to bring in oracles, they want to bring in smart contracts, and they want to do this interesting thing called outsourced computations. So first thing to say is it's still a work in progress. So there's no new tokens, no new coins, there's no airdrops or ICOs. Right. But we're just going to run through it and do our best to kind of give you a very general overview of what this is, and then we'll probably look at it in more detail at a later date.
So what is it aiming to do? Yeah,
so Qubic is essentially aiming to provide a way to safely communicate with the outside world in a trustless environment.
Right.
In a trusted environment. And they want to be a computing platform for building complex IoT or Internet of Things applications.
Right.
They also want to have a new type of smart contract which can collect micropayments in real times as those micropayments run.
Wow.
And they also want to give a reward system so people can be incentivized to actually participate in this thing and provide their computers. So that's their aims, and they're very high and lofty aims. And
that thing is incentivizing honest participation.
Yeah, so they're trying to design a system where you'll be able to determine who is participating honestly and providing good data and not trying to fudge the numbers essentially and make money off it, and who's not doing that.
Wow. So oracles which are built into this, as you mentioned, as you were saying, that's bringing data from outside the blockchain into this system. Now, just like the blockchain, the Tangle, which is what IOTA has real problems bringing data in. So the big problem with this is trust. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so you've got essentially with a blockchain or with the Tangle with IOTA, you've got a closed off system. So it's decentralized in a sense that it can be run all over the world, but it's very hard to bring data into that system because it's running on different types of rules to how we run the internet. And it's all about providing trustless information. So if you've got like a ledger and it's just got financial data, to try and bring in some data from outside means you've got to find a way to put it on that ledger in a way that everyone can agree that, yep, that's trusted and we can bring that data in. So, for example, you could use that for like temperature data from real-world sensors, current or historical stock value from the stock market, personal attributes like someone's age or marital status or deceased status, or even like election results. A lot of that stuff's hosted on private servers, But if you have a way to bring it in onto the blockchain, then all of a sudden you can build applications to use that data.
So how are IOTA doing this whole, solving this whole oracle problem?
IOTA are proposing having essentially groups of oracles, and those oracles can come to what's called a quorum. So for those that don't know, a quorum is something that we draw from corporations, essentially. If you've got like a corporation and the corporation wants to make a decision, you'll generally want to have a vote on that decision. Or it's the same for associations, same for a number of different things. But you need to have a certain amount of people to even begin the vote. And then you need to have a certain amount of people say yes to a vote before it can be satisfied. So that's kind of what we call reaching quorum. And what these guys are saying is essentially that if you can have groups of oracles, so groups of nodes, all bringing information in from outside, and then they all kind of look at that information before it gets written to the blockchain and check that they agree that it's correct, then you can start to reach quorum. And the way that they incentivize people to do that is by having the person requesting the information offer them a reward for going and getting the information.
Right.
So if you're building an application using IOTA that needs to pull in information from outside, you can say, well, I'm going to offer, let's, for argument's sake, 1 IOTA as a reward for these oracles to bring that stock market data in for me from outside. And they say that if you need more security, you can ask a bigger group of these nodes to do it for you. If you're more concerned about speed, you might use what's called a smaller assembly. Or there might be like a trusted assembly that people know is reliable, it's smaller, it's quicker, and you could just use that.
Wow.
And so that's kind of like the public and private oracles. You go to a public one, or there might be a company that you trust, and they run a really quick oracle, but it doesn't have the same amount of people checking it, and that's a quick one. It's a lot of technical stuff, but anytime you're trying to pull in data, it's really, really important for a blockchain sense. So that's why IOTA is making such a big deal out of it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So Qubics, how does that come into this?
Yeah, so Qubics are essentially kind of like the smart contracts in a way of the Qubic world. So they're pre-packaged quorum-based computational tasks, they call them. Right. And to pull that apart, what that essentially means is it's code, which has to come to quorum in some kind of way. So it has to come to some kind of agreement, and you can use that code to perform tasks. Right. So they're published like messages, like normal messages in normal transactions, similar to how you do it on Ethereum, but they're event-driven. So if you put a Qubic on the Tangle, the IOTA Tangle, it'll just sit there in like a dormant state. But when something happens, which it applies to, then it'll start doing things. Right. So it'll just sit there on the network listening for an event, and then once that event happens, then it will take action. So you can program it to take action based on certain events.
So do they have, I'm guessing they've got some kind of language that does all this stuff?
Yeah, so they've built a very specific language for it called Abra, which is a functional language, and they've built a number of predefined basic functions into it. So I think that's quite similar to Solidity. I honestly haven't had a lot of time to go through it, but from reading the documentation, it seems similar to the documentation I read for Solidity, which is Ethereum's programming language. Not similar in form, but similar in the sense that they're like, we've built this new system and we need a programming language that can use this new system.
So this all runs on the Qubic protocol. And what does that sort of mean?
Yeah, so Qubic protocol, from my reading anyway, is kind of like the virtual machine for IOTA. So at the moment, you've got like the IOTA ledger, which can run accounts for all sorts of different IoT devices, and they can send IOTA to each other. But that's kind of it. They can't send too much other data other than transactional data. Right. It's just a pretty basic ledger. So you can kind of picture this as like an operating system which all the nodes run to execute some more complex tasks and applications and things like that.
So are there any other sort of features for this?
Yeah, so the one other feature that really intrigued me about this, and obviously we're only getting the initial information right now, is this concept of outsourced computing. And for those that know a bit about IOTA, it's all about connecting up all these very small computer chips in all these like household devices, essentially.
And there is zero transfer.
Zero transfer fees for the transactions. So it's all meant to be very quick, very fast, very cheap. the whole idea is, it's an economy of scale. Like if you have 200 million fridges on your network, even if they're all a very small computer chip, you've got a significant amount of computing power between all those fridges, and the more you have on the network, the stronger the network gets. Because they're very small, there's not a lot of overheads, and it could potentially just be like a chip that's put in every single microprocessor, a little IOTA enabled chip. What they've identified is that one fridge can't compute, like let's say you're running Power Ledger as well, and you want your fridge to talk to your computer chip that runs your electricity, and you want your fridge to tell your computer chip what the times are when it needs the most power and what the times are when it needs the least power. To work that out could be quite computationally intense. So it could take a significant amount of computing power to crunch all the numbers and work all that out. So instead of having the fridge try and do it and fry its little microprocessor, it could instead say to the network, you've got all this combined computing power, I just need it for like 2 seconds and just to compute this one thing, and then I'm done. That way the fridge can then get the information it needs and send it to the device without you even really needing to do anything about it. And that's kind of the motivation behind this whole outsourcing the computing thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
This whole smart contracts part of it?
Yeah, so it'll be free of fees, so similar to how EOS is doing it. And so the smart contracts are essentially the Qubics, and they're talking about being able to aggregate a lot of these Qubics together in bigger contracts. So let's say you've got a number of oracles all pulling in temperatures. You could build a smart contract that could take all those different temperatures systematically whenever needed, aggregate them all, work out an average, and then publish them to the Tangle.
Wow.
And you've essentially built another oracle out of a smart contract.
Wow.
So that's kind of what they're planning on building onto the system. That's kind of all the information we have at the moment. It's all pretty general, but there's a lot of diagrams. The documentation is basic, but it's quite instructive if you go through it.
Is there anything our audience can see more about it with?
Yes, there's a teaser video out at the moment, which we'll link. It's still all very new, like we said, so there'll probably be more resources coming out over time. So we will circle back around to it when we get the chance. Yeah, definitely one to watch. It's just really good to see more coming out of IOTA.
Amazing. Last week, you had the opportunity to interview the CEO of Blockgrain. Now, Blockgrain is a fascinating agriculture startup in the blockchain space. Really cool stuff, and you learn a bunch of stuff from that.
Yeah, it was a really good interview. I really enjoyed it. Kale was just incredibly interesting to talk to, both on the mic and off the mic.
Wow.
He's someone that's got a significant amount of experience in the industry and is setting out to just try and make life better for farmers, which is something really close to my heart. For anyone that's been listening to the podcast would know for a while that I'm from a farm myself, and look, what he's doing I'm a huge fan of personally. But I think once you hear him talk and you hear the motivation behind this project and what these guys have done so far, then you'll get a better picture of exactly why we think this is an exciting project. So we'll play the interview and hope you enjoy it. G'day everyone, this is Matt here from the FOMO Show. I'm here with Cale Ditterich, who is the CEO of the Blockgrain project. So Blockgrain is a blockchain-based project aimed towards, first of all, the wheat industry throughout Australia and later on in the world, and then also gearing up to become a blockchain solution for the wider agricultural industry. So thanks very much for joining me, Cal.
Thanks very much for having me, Matt. It's great to be up in Brisbane. It's certainly a change from the Victorian weather.
Yeah, I was down in Victoria last week myself, and it was a lot colder. So I can imagine it's nice to be here. So talk to us a little bit first about your background, what you did before Blockgrain and what brought you to consider building this project.
Yeah, of course. So I used to work for one of the largest bulk handlers or grain handlers in Australia, and I had a great time there. I learnt a lot and I started to understand the industry, but at the same time I started to see where the market was heading and where the value was being extracted by intermediaries. Yep. And at the same time I then looked at it and thought, well, look at the trends, and I noticed that a lot of farmers were storing all their produce on farm, and they weren't, I suppose, engaging the traditional supply chains as much.
Yep.
And at the same time, I then learnt, well, what are they using to manage all of that data around storing their grains, around marketing their grains, around tracking their grains from the paddock to their storage, around their logistics? And basically, the best answer I got was some people have an Excel sheet. That was about it. And I thought,
And that was pretty high tech.
that was high tech, and most don't. I mean, I know a few of my farmers do, but a lot of it was just in an envelope. A lot of it was on the back of a paper. Oh, there's that much in this silo. I mean, the management of quality really was it just wasn't good enough.
Right.
And so, and it's not to blame a farmer. It's it's harvest time and it's flat out, and you've got so much things that can go wrong. You're just trying to get the grain off.
Yep.
So I thought, well, let's build a solution that allows them to easily track their grain. It's a full logistics solution. Let's build something that can help them track it from a paddock into their silos. They know, then they can look at it and see what qualities in every silo, specs, value. They can manage all their outloads, all their logistics. Let's go around building that. And so we set out a couple of years ago doing that. And then all of a sudden along came this thing called blockchain. And we thought, oh, yeah, that's interesting. And I said, yeah, it's interesting, but it'd be good if this blockchain thing could, really promote transparency and allow us to hook farmers up internationally and cut out all the paperwork. And I sort of ignored it a little bit.
Yep.
I thought, learn it through Bitcoin, and just didn't really give it the time it deserved a couple of years ago. And
Yep.
about 3 months down the track, I was talking to someone. I said, what is there? We really need to be able to allow a farmer to extract the maximum value and be able to link up overseas in a safe environment. And he said, oh, you should look at blockchain. I said, oh, yeah, all right, we'll go retrace and go back through it. And that's where we got into blockchain. And we started to understand that, unlike many businesses out there, we actually have the perfect use case for blockchain, which is traceability. It's contracting, it's payment, it's smart contracts. It's everything that blockchain was created for. So I thought, it lines up, it works. We're not certainly out there trying to pump ourselves just to make money out of this blockchain that everyone's throwing around. Let's do it. So from there, we met Nugget and the guys from Nuggets News, and it all just took off from there.
Right. Okay. So you were looking for something, to solve a problem, and then it seems like the moment you started looking, something essentially fell in your lap.
The timing was good.
Yeah,
it was. The timing was really good.
So there's that inefficiency then from the farmer's side, and that really helps. The blockchain solution seems like it will help from that side. But I was reading through your material, and I also saw that there was a lot of inefficiencies on the other side as well. And there were once these goods leave the farm, once they go out into the ecosystem, there's, apart from just the traceability factor for the farmer themselves, a lot of other steps in the process. There's a lot of wastage and a lot of inefficiencies. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, they say 30% of the cost, roughly, in Australian produce is taken up in supply chain and logistics, and it's a very cumbersome beast. So in terms of the wastage, I mean, you can look through grains isn't as bad because it's hard, it stores, and it's more robust. But if you take it into the fruit and vegetable, which we're doing betas at the minute, it's just astronomical. I mean, and it's not so much. Everyone would love to blame the supermarkets. I certainly don't blame them so much for the wastage side. I know that around the pricing and competitiveness, that's a different issue. But in terms of the wastage, there's legislation out there that basically says, well, if this fruit is X amount of days old, it has to go in the bin. Now, it could be the greatest piece of fruit you've ever seen, but the wastage around that is astronomical. And if you look forward through in the developing economy, if you go into a place like India where we've got a couple of pilots running, and you look at the wastage, it's probably a great example for your cereal. I mean, a lot of the grain that is grown just doesn't make a market, just ends up rotting because they don't have anything for it. There's no way to distribute it. They can't compete on a global scale. Yeah. And when to further answer your question, if you go into a developing economy like Africa, there's more food grown than they know what to do with. Right. But yet we still have these mass starvation problems because the logistics breaks down and they can't get it to market and they can't extract the maximum value. It's just they don't have technology. It's going back to trying to sell a lot of produce in a small environment, and you can't do it unless you have logistics and unless you have technology that links these people into a world level. There are always going to be these wastage issues. So that's where we come into things.
Yeah. Okay. So there was not only a need then from the farmer's side as well, but there was also a need from the transparency, logistics, and essentially having something where you could look at the whole picture and have a system that could start to manage this all these disparate areas.
Exactly.
And pull it all together.
Well, and probably what happens is unbeknownst to a farmer, by using our system, all of a sudden what happens is, we've solved a core need for them, which is managing their grain and their contracts and their logistics and all of that sort of stuff, and the paperwork around it and the bookings. It's an absolute nightmare to book one truck of grain in from paddock or from a bulk handler into an end user. If it's a port, is about 14 steps, just one load.
Right.
So I've got a broker that does 100 loads, does 5,000 loads a year, and spends 98% of his time, 10 hours a day, booking these trucks in.
That's 14 by 5,000, isn't it?
It's massive. We're going to cut that down. We're going to make that. We'll cut that in half easily with this technology.
Yeah.
But what happens is, getting back to what I was saying, is when all these people are using this infrastructure, you have a base.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, let's just take it one step further. We've already got the logistics, so we're tracking it to the end user. Why not, once we get it to the manufacturer or the brewery or the malt house or the flour mill, let's track it one step further and take it to the consumer. So by solving a core need at the baseline, we have created 90% of a supply chain solution. All we need to do is check on the other 10%, and unbeknownst to the farmer, he's just created full provenance over his product, which allows him then to create a brand going forward and say, well, this is my grain, or this is my fruit, or this is my wool, this is the chemicals that have been on it, this is where it's been stored, and they can see through the supply chain, because blockchain goes both ways. It doesn't just say to the big companies who buy the wheat, oh, now we get to see what happens. The farmer who sells that grain, he gets the data on where his grain went, what products it went into. So theoretically, he could walk into a supermarket, scan an item, and say, well, this has come from, it's come from my farm. Well, there you go.
Okay.
So what it goes both ways, and where that becomes exceptionally important is we're doing a trial now with the largest brewery in West Virginia, and I didn't realise this, but they produce an exceptional amount of beer, as you can imagine. They love their beer. What happens is that goes to a retailer. As soon as it goes to a retailer, they lose visibility of it. They don't know how long it sits in the heat for. They don't know how long, whether it's been cooled and then reheated.
Right.
They don't know who's selling it. They don't know who's buying it. They get no feedback on their data, nor do they get feedback on the quality of their beer when it delivers through that supply chain. That blew me away.
Wow.
So what our system does, it allows them as a brewer to protect their product and say, well, this has been kept at the right temperature throughout the supply chain, and it has been delivered as it should be, so that you're not damaging our brand. So not only does it add to the brand value of the middlemen who are in the breweries and who are in the flour mills, it adds to the value of the farmer, because all of a sudden they get to understand exactly what he's growing. And I speak to millers every day who are happy to pay more, and some are paying more right now if they get absolute traceability over single origin. That's where the grain was grown. That's what was on it. There's free of contaminants, and they deliver, and the farmer acts accordingly to make sure that they hold up their end of the agreement.
Right. So it's giving visibility to every single step in that process, allowing people to protect their brand. Yep. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit then. Let's look at a practical example. So let's take a farmer. Let's just say it is a grain farmer at the moment, because that's probably the area that this is most fleshed out.
Call him Joe.
We'll call him Joe. So Joe is getting ready to harvest his crop.
Yeah.
So he's put this in the field. He's grown it all year.
Yep.
He's getting ready to harvest it, and he's looking to integrate this new blockgrain technology. So a rep's come along and sold him on it, or the AWB said, this is what we recommend you use.
Yeah.
It's his first season. How does it look then for him? And then going forward with the grain once it's harvested?
Excellent. Okay, so basically for him, let's say Joe has a broker.
Yeah.
Let's say, and a lot of farmers out there use a broker for price discovery, to manage all of their logistics, their paperwork, all the stuff that everyone hates doing. They get a broker to do it. So theoretically for Joe, in this instance, the broker would set him up. The broker would set up his fields. All Joe would do is say to his employees, download this app, and every time you leave the paddock, press this button. And every time you go to My Storage or to a bulk handler, press that button. That's it.
Okay.
It's as simple as it is. The app has been built so simple. It's built for truck drivers. It's built for farmers who are busy, who are always at harvest time. It's frantic, We built this system to think for the farmer. So if you go into a bulk handler and you leave it and you haven't unloaded, it'll say, hey,
Yep.
what are you doing? You've unloaded. Get a photo of your receipt. So basically, we just take a photo of all the receipts from bulk handlers. We scrape all that data and we put it into a back-end database. So not only does it create your own database of all your storages for a system perspective, like GrainCorp's, you can use that to cross-reference what GrainCorp say you've got versus what you have. And we've actually found some people who not only did they not get an inload, but they actually got charged as an outload. So it was a double-sided hit, and it was about a $10,000 turnaround just from one load.
Just an administrative error.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, going back to your question is, the broker would set them up, or they might set them up. They
Yep.
enter their ABN, pull down the data, they add their trucks,
Yep.
they add their storages, and away they go. And
Yep.
basically, every farmer that comes in, or if you're hiring a logistics company in, they just download the app and they link. They say, I'm working with you today. I'm working with Farmer Joe, and every load that they do back and forward, gets logged through Farmer Joe's account, and there's an administrative back end where the office person or the broker just sits there and says, yep, that's correct, tick, tick, tick.
Yep.
So instantaneously, you know every load that's left the paddock, you know every contract, so you can go straight from paddock to an end user. It might be a feed mill, it might be to a port when there's a short on. You just put it against the contract, so it'll update your contracts. As soon as that truck arrives to port, it'll say, your truck's arrived.
Yep.
As soon as they get there, they take a photo of the docket, we rip all the data off it, and you're updated. So instantaneously, you as a farmer you know your position, you know how much forward you sold, you know your stocks, you know your quality. It'll tell you when to gas. It'll tell you pretty much anything you need to know about your grain. It'll teach you how to blend.
Yeah.
So our system actually says, well, if you're looking for 12.5% protein, and you want to go out of these two silos, you should take X% out of this silo and X% out of that silo. And it'll give you, 12.5, 12.6, depending on how accurate the data going in. So it teaches you how to blend to get the maximum value out of your grain.
Right.
But that is as simple as it is. It is basically just a simple app. Load my truck, unload my truck. We have done all the. Now it sounds like anyone could build it. It took us so long to work out all the different abnormalities and all the different possibilities. Where are you loading from? Is it a silo? Is it against a contract? Is it an order? Who's it for? Who are you linked with? There's a spreadsheet. I think there's, just from that load and unload for your viewers out there, I think we went through every possibility. It's about 168 possibilities, variations around where you're loading versus where you can deliver and what that must do to the app. So when we go on to show people our app, they're like, oh, it doesn't flow. When we show them the screens, I said, well, that's because it can't, because the app actually thinks, it knows where you are, it knows what you're doing. So it can't just go from, we can't just show you this screen goes to this screen goes to this screen, because depending on your situation, the role is 168 variables that it will show you. So we've basically, the bottom line is we've built this thing so that it's so simple to use that there is no excuse. When someone says, truck driver or a farmhand says, oh, I don't use a phone, it's like, well, mate, all you're doing is pressing a button to load it and taking a photo of a docket, or just doing a simple inload into your home storage. That's it.
Okay. And when they're pressing that button, I mean, to them, you say it's very simple, but from reading it and from what you're saying now, it sounds like by them pressing a button, there's a lot of normal code that's executing, a lot of smart contract code that's executing as well.
Yeah, there's chaos behind the scenes.
Yeah. So who sets that up then? So is that the broker that sets a lot of those relationships? Because obviously there'll have to be relationships between the farmer and the transport officer and the broker and the port. Are they all taken care of? Like, are there templates that people can activate on Blockgrain? Or
so when they're setting someone up, you
correct,
mean?
yeah.
So a broker just goes in. So everyone's uniquely identified, and we use the ABN. So a broker might go in, or a farmer could do it himself. He just goes in, says, I'm a farmer, I'm setting myself up.
Yep.
ABN, puts in the details, just enters his farm, enters his silos. Everything's GPS mapped, so he just drops a silo here.
Yep.
And basically from that, he can start doing whatever he wants.
Wow.
He or she. And if they have a broker, the broker can say, I'd like to, they send an invite to link with Joe. And Joe says, yep, no worries. And then the data that is shared, and then the broker can take over and start adding more silos. And what a broker can do is say, oh, Joe, I've got a truck coming next week. He's going to pick up APW out of silo 4. And the broker just sends that straight. He just types it in, a couple of buttons, bang, that gets sent straight to the logistics company who get it on their system. Who say, yep, no worries, I'm going to send truck, Rego AA8911 out.
Yep.
All of a sudden, everybody knows, the farmer knows that there's a truck coming in 2 weeks' time. This is the Rego, this is what he's picking up. The truck driver knows because he's got it on his phone, and everybody's integrated. Just simple as that. And so, and if you take it one step further, at harvest time when you've got different trucks coming and going, they don't even need to be pre-linked. They just roll up on your farm, scan, bang, we're linked, and they start working for you. Simple as that.
Okay. All right. I read there were a couple of... So to make all this happen behind the scenes, there's also some tokenization going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a split between... So you've got your public layer, which is like a public blockchain layer.
Yep.
And then you've got the private layer, which is your own blockchain, which it sounds like is a lot of where a lot of the proprietary tech has gone into, simply because the public layer couldn't service the amount of bandwidth that you needed.
Yes.
Is that correct? And could you talk a little bit more about that?
Partially. So we looked, what's one of the most stable currencies out there, or the most stable coin, I suppose, or I suppose environment in which to run a token sale and to be able to drive the high level transactions. And so we went with Ethereum at that point. And what it does, the Ethereum's where all the high level, the Agri is what our token is, where the transactions occur. So money comes in, Agri goes out, Agri backs the commodity contracts for international transactions. Every time someone loads their truck, it costs Agri. Every time they store grain, it's Agri. Every time they do a contract, it's Agri. So it's just small amounts across the whole supply chain that add up to quite a lot. But in the private layer, we still haven't. We're still working out what is the best solution for our case. And so the people that have put their money into our business, they've done so knowing that we're not going to rush out and say, let's choose this blockchain to run our system, because to be perfectly honest, there's so many new ones coming out every week. There's a new chain, and we want to converge at the right time when we know, okay, here's a product that is quick, it is scalable, it is fast, it works for logistics, it works for everything that we need to do it, and it's cost effective for our customers, being farmers, which means they don't have any issue.
They don't need to learn what
barriers.
a blockchain is.
They don't need to learn, and therefore the people who have invested in us benefit by mass adoption across the farming industry. So we haven't decided which way we're going to go at this point, and we can run our system largely at the minute without that bottom layer. But the time is coming in where we do need to work out what we're going to do. We have built our technology in such a way that we can plug and play to a degree. So we know, for instance, like. Excuse me. Our guys are very good. They every day, once a week, they're bringing forward basically a new option, a new way of thinking. Like there's now holo chains. There's now all sorts of wonderful gizmos coming out. In theory. I mean, for us, it's about understanding which one of those, when all this proliferation occurs and we're all expanding and we're all going left, right, center, up, down, everywhere, eventually, like everything else, will come back to one central point, and it will be one or two key chains that people are using. Do I think Ethereum's one of them? Probably not, unless they can solve some of the issues they have. But at the minute is the best. So we use that as our stable top layer. But there will be a time where there is something perfect. Now we look at EOS, we look at VeChain, we look at I think there is actually Holochain. We look at that. We look at Hyperledger. All of these other ones, and they're all wonderful technologies, but are they exactly the best fit for us at this point is what we're still working for.
There's a little bit horses for courses with a lot of these platforms,
and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with a lot of platforms, as we've found. So some people have raised a lot of money and a lot of talking about their chain, and they still haven't built a chain. They still don't have technology yet, and there's a couple of well-known chains out there that might be more smoke than anything else. So.
Well, so I saw you had essentially Blockgrain version 1.0 and Blockgrain version 2.0. Could you talk a little bit about the distinction between those two?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest fundamentals is people go out and say, 6 months ago you could have put blockchain on anything and raised whatever you wanted to, and a lot of people did, and a lot of people have already failed. We haven't done that. We've been in business, it's about 2014, 15, about 3 years, a bit more now. Understanding what our customer wants, finding a need, working through iterations. So the first iteration was just simply understanding how the storage system works and how a farmer engages with his storage. How do they, when they come racing in, what do they press? What do they want to do to log in? Do they want to put in all the specs and all the details, or do they want to put in basic stuff? What's the flow through their delivery process? That's basically what it was. And we did contracting and that on top of it, but it was a web-based version. Very simple. In its own right, it was probably better than anything out there in the market space, to be perfectly honest, because no one else was doing it and no one else is doing it. But it was a web-based version, and it was pretty simple. But from that, we allowed us to get enough attention from brokers and farmers to say, "Oh, these guys are onto something." And so we then signed on the largest group of independent grain brokers in Australia, Rise Agri, and they're really cool guys. They're out there trying to help their farmers and push the industry in the right direction. And so with them and with their growers and with their logistics companies, we've now been developing the second version, which is a lot more streamlined. It's native apps. It doesn't require any service. It's just it's a really cool thing. And so I suppose the message there is, we've done the hard yards, and we thought we knew what customers wanted, and we've been out there for 2 years trialing and that, and now we know what customers want. We're willing to invest, and it's not cheap, but we'll invest a lot of money to make sure that the product is exactly as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so that's probably where we differ a little bit from other companies that go, well, here's an idea, we'll raise money, let's go at it.
Yep.
And as I say in a presentation, you'll probably see it later, Google didn't make the internet. They just saw it and they made it better. Power Ledger didn't make Power. They didn't make. They haven't gone out and reinvented the whole system. They've just added a few minor changes to make a big difference in the industry. And I think just on Power Ledger's probably, in my mind, they're the pinnacle.
The gold standard.
They are. They are the gold, and not just in Australia. I think across most. Token sales across most crypto businesses, they are the gold standard, and they, it's something like they've paved the way for us to be able to do what we've done. They've opened so many doors, but Australia Power Ledger, or Australia, Horizon State.
Yep.
So between those two businesses, and I probably should mention Horizon State, and again, they're not changing. There's databases out there. All they're doing is making an industry or a very rather important part of our world. They're making it easier, and they're making it better and immutable and
more
fairer
open.
and more transparent. So those two businesses have really, I suppose, put Australia in the spotlight. And so we've probably, I've probably cheated a bit and jumped on the back of them a bit and been able to expand. And I'll have to thank them for it and buy them a beer at one stage. But
standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. But
that's okay.
My point is, it's not, people go out and say, I'm going to invent, I'm going to create a new sort of spaceship, and I'm going to fly to the moon, and at the same time I'm going to grow organic beef on the moon, and then I'm going to, they come up with all these wonderful things, and they put it out there, and the world goes, oh my God, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Try and execute on it. Try and actually take that from something that's in your head and put it onto paper. Because as simple as what we're talking about in our environment is, as simple as it sounds, it's been, it's 16-hour days every single day, a team of 25 people working on this around the clock to make sure it is what it is. Now, that's just a very, within reason, a simplistic idea that we have around making farmers' lives a lot easier and creating value. Try and do all the things that these people are talking about. You can give them as much money as you want, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, I suppose, again, the message is find an industry. Don't try and fight it the whole way. Just give people options and say, well, yes, you can still use a traditional method of selling grain or storing grain, which we support. But if you want to do something else, we have this option here, which is may or may not be a little bit more efficient depending on your scenario. But ultimately, we have a business that's out there. And it's,
And look, I think that's one of the things that, and look, from already talking to you from the meetups you've been to, it sounds like the community's been very engaged, and there's especially the farming community, and that's generally a good sign. Being from a farming background myself, that the moment I saw this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you guys on the show so much, because we, the farmers do feel like they've been left out in the dark a lot with this stuff, and it's a lot of it is from simply being too busy to be able to put the time into to make any technology that makes things better for them. There have been oligarchies and monopolies that have been built up around this stuff, and
for years
and years and years, and it sounds like, at least from what I'm hearing and from reading your material, that this may be the first step in dismantling some of those oligarchies and making it a little, giving farmers a bit more access to the market, and a bit more bargaining power in the market, which just, especially when you have a perishable good, it becomes
particularly
very
in a perishable
hard.
good. If you look at my mates, they're all in fruit and vegetables, and I will comment on that. I tend to do that. I always go off on a tangent and try and bring it back. But they, they're under the pump. They can't hold it. They can't store it. It goes to market.
You've got a few days, and that's it.
And it's like they try and put stuff into Hong Kong, which then goes into China. I know guys that are losing containers every year. For every 10 they send, and big money, one might go missing, 100 grand down the drain, because there's no accountability, there's no blockchain, there's no system. It's just old school. If you come back to the grain farmer scenario, if you look at the what's happened over time is obviously we deregulated, and I remember sitting at work and we used to do our competitors reports, and there'd be 20 different competitors of all different prices that I'd have to check and go through all these templates. Go and do that now. There's about 3. That's what's left. Now, that's not to say that they don't provide value, because I think the traditional buyers at times provide excellent value. I think there's times where, because of the positions that they make in logistics and shipping and ocean freight, that they're actually paying more for Australian grain than what it's worth. I'm not here to badmouth the traditional guys, because there are times where they provide value, but I think the days of blending your grain and putting it together with everyone else and trying to create efficiencies aren't working. And I think that, look, the consumer wants to know what they're eating. And the consumer wants to know who they're dealing with. We speak with mills, as I said, that want to know. Look, there's so much intricacies into milling. Like, what colour does it come out? If it colours off, then their customers won't buy it. What chemicals have been in it? Like, there's a ship that went to Japan. It ended up, I think, and you'll see tonight, in 300,000 cups of cereal or something else. It was all barley. Yeah. They had to recall all of that sort of stuff. There's no traceability over. It was just a big bulk ship that went in there and it was contaminated. Now, that's not good for Australia, and it's not good for anybody. But coming back to the question, I believe a farmer should be able to stand in a field anywhere, Darling Downs, doesn't matter, Toowoomba. He should be able to look at his phone and work out, am I selling to the local guy today at 250 X farm? Or am I selling at 251 and it's going international? But I don't need to know how. I don't need to worry about blockchain. I don't need to know anything other than I'm going to get paid and I'm getting the best price that I can. And when you do that, it should be no different to buying a John Deere tractor where they fly you over to Illinois and they take you through the factory and you feel pretty good about it. Not that I've ever bought a John Deere. I've we've never really had the money to do it, but it should be no different. You should be able to build your relationship with your flour mill internationally, because there are times in the world, like Australia's only a small player in the grain market, but there are times where what we have is very rare for that point in time in location. So there are times where if you're trying to get certain barley varieties and for your malt house, you have to come to Australia. And so we should be able to connect those farmers when it economically makes sense. And it doesn't always make economic sense. But when it does, farmers should be able to build their own relationships so that they know, next year, I've got to put 500 tonne aside for whatever mill it might be. That's where that's going. They always come in and buy this, and I've already got that relationship with them. And just expanding. The world is so small now, and if you can't build your own supply chains and you can't keep your grain in your supply chain, then potentially you're going to miss out on that value in the long run.
We'll wrap up soon. There was one part that really stuck out to me in the white paper that I just wanted to explore a little bit with you, because it connects with that. I saw a mention of farming cooperatives. And this concept of using the blockchain and smart contracts eventually, as this blockchain platform matures, to begin building cooperatives between farmers and to begin building an ecosystem where there may be some more bargaining power tangibly, and farmers could make decisions connected with each other. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that really stuck out to me as an interesting part of the platform.
There's two parts to that. One is if you look in, I'll start with in the developing economies, there's a lot of smaller farmers trying to come together, and trying to bring. They might only have a couple of tonne each, or they might have a couple of bags of wheat. So for them, what we're trying to do is say, well, let's put it in a blockchain so it's transparent. Everyone knows there's no corruption, because a lot of those environments are pretty corrupt. And what that does is it allows them to bring all their grain together, store it, do what they need to do, and try and get it onto an international market. So that's a smaller cooperative. But in terms of the Australian market, we believe that if you have farmers in a certain area that reach a certain standard, and they want to compete in their own cooperative, just because it's not held in the one spot, just because it's not sitting in the one physical location, you might have 5 farmers within a 5 kilometre radius that have some of the best grain in the world. Why not link up and say, okay, you've got 300 tonne, I've got 2,000. Let's put it all together and let's see who wants this. Let's work together, because we all know we can deliver. We all know what our quality's like. And you can put things in place to even, you could theoretically even bring in Horizon State to put in a voting system of when you wanted to sell, or what there's ways of doing things to ensure that farmers who are working on farm with their own grain can get the maximum value without losing traceability. And that is one of the key points. And you're glad you picked up on it. And you can see you've read the white paper. A lot of people actually don't. But if you can bring people to the table, and you've got to understand, these farmers are getting bigger, and they're never going to get smaller. There will come a time in my area now, back home in Swan Hill, there will be a time where once there was 15 farmers, it might be 2.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing in our area.
There are guys now doing, I won't mention his name, but he's a good guy up there at Goodnight, and he's probably doing 80,000 acres now. And the guy across the river, a couple of brothers are doing the similar. There will be a time where intermediaries aren't needed because these guys are so big that they are nearly their own intermediary. They can have their own system, their own silos. Now, if you can pull some of those people together in their own right to form a virtual cooperative and say, well, I've got 1,000 tonne, you've got 10,000, you've got 15, you've got 300. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's all contribute for the greater good of saying, well, here's our, and put it out there for people and say, here's what we've got.
Yeah.
Give us your delivered price, or give us your international price. We'll deliver it to the port. Blockgrain system will take care of the rest, and we can automatically distribute payment evenly to every party instantaneously.
Because it's all smart contracts.
It's all smart contracts. We know who's delivered what tonnes. So if 100 tonne come off farm B or farm A and it's going overseas, we know when to pay that. It's all it's basically a virtual world of cooperatives. And to take it one step further, we believe that at some point, and it's actually coming now. There's companies that want to finance grain on farms and buy direct. So what you're saying is sort of starting to happen, but they don't have software to do that, and that's where we come into it. And so theoretically, as a single farmer, you are basically become your own cooperative because you manage your own storages and you get your own prices for your own farm.
Yep.
But when you pull that together amongst 5 or 6 medium-sized farmers, you start to bring a fair bit of bargaining power to the table. Now, if you can pull 5, 6 farmers together, all of a sudden you can command, $5, $3, $4, $10 more, depending on what you've got. $10 over a couple of thousand tonne is pretty good money.
That's right. What changes are you anticipating in the industry then? Because obviously we've talked about a couple of the most, I guess, the lowest hanging fruit of changes. But then instantly, when I saw this, being from a fruit and veggie background myself, when I saw this,
fruit and veg,
I saw that there is so for example, in our industry, there's a big monopoly built up around the refrigeration and then the sale from that refrigeration. So here in Brisbane, for example, there's the Brisbane markets, and that's kind of your central place where everyone takes their produce, and they have the fridges, and then the agents are the essentially the intermediaries between that. And when you want to talk about openness and traceability, there is none of that.
No.
I
think those guys are in for a world of hurt, those middlemen. Look, I used to work in the Melbourne markets, a couple of my friends. So I was in Swan Hill, where it's largely fruit and it's largely grain. And the Melbourne market, you look, largely the supermarkets have gutted the Melbourne markets now. The new Melbourne market, I'm told, it doesn't have the same vibe because it's a bit further out. The greengrocers are pretty much gone. They don't come in and provide that competitive.
A lot of people are contracting now straight with the
So the Melbourne market, I'm not qualified enough to say, but I suggest largely is nearly becoming obsolete in its own right. So what this does is, if we can provide a solution where a fruit farmer can say, I can sell to Woolies or to Coles or to the local whoever, that's fine, but I can have a secure solution where actually if I just put it on air freight or I do this, I can sell it straight overseas instantaneously. Straight into China, straight here, straight there, straight wherever, as long as there's no government interference with trade policy and everything else. But for me, again, it comes back to options. We're not saying that a fruit farmer has to sell overseas or has to use our system. But ultimately, if we can provide traceability and we can provide a safe environment for them to use our system, then it provides options. So all of a sudden, there are times where, and it's just more buyers. The more buyers that you can bring to a mobile phone of a farmer, the better, because he has options.
And look, that may sound like, for us, because we're so used to trading cryptocurrencies and whatever else, now all of us have been in this market for a while, and we can see those prices on our phone. We kind of take that for granted. But for a farmer, you don't hear about the price overseas of something. You don't know. You don't even know what the price is going to be.
You don't even know in the Melbourne market. By the time the agent takes his 20%, that's not actually 20%.
Because it's gated, and that information isn't available. And I think that's something that can't be overemphasized, is the fact that so much of the issue with the agricultural industry in general at the moment is visibility, especially huge. Price visibility. It's because huge. If you can make decisions based on prices, where you can look at all the prices from different markets anywhere in the world,
and you can access those markets. You're so much more informed. You're informed. It's like I'll finish on this one. It's like the so there's a simple app out now that the guys brought out, and one day we envision coffee beans being traceable, another thing for us. Some guys brought a pricing app out, and they gave these smartphones to the farmers, and the poor farmers, obviously in the coffee regions, and Costa Rica, I think. And they looked at this and they were working out, they did the maths, and it didn't take them long to work out how much was getting made in the middle between what they were selling it for. And there was nearly a riot. Like basically, information is everything.
Yeah.
And if we can provide, we're not saying we're going to take a farmer's data and put it out there for everyone to see. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
What we're saying is the more data that we can provide a farmer to make his decisions, and the better that he can store his or her grain, and the better that they, like we had a guy who, there was a contract out there, I think it was about middle of last year, the market slumped, but just before it slumped, he was offered, I think it was like a 2,000 tonne parcel, quite a large farmer, quite a large parcel, for a good price. He was like, oh, geez, I don't know if I can take it, I don't know position, I don't know how many contracts, oh, no, just don't worry about it, mate. Yep. Week later, the price hit the floor, cost him 30,000.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, 20,000.
Yeah.
But if he had known, because of our software, if he was using it, needless to say he does now, but bang, oh, yep, no worries, I can do that. Bang, done.
Yep, and you can start building models on all that information too, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we're almost out of time. So I just wanted to run past the token sale really quick. You guys are running a token sale at the moment?
So we went out, I never forgot about that actually. I've got to go and I'm heading down to the Mercure now. The Nuggets boys, we've been out on roadshow with them. It's been exceptional. We're running a token, we were a bit differently. So this is what happens in the token sale world, and it's an unfortunate thing, but we all think, we sit there and think, we're going to get on a pre-sale here, and they send us out the pre-sale and we sign up. Mostly these token sales are sold out even before they get to a pre-sale. It's all big institutional money. They take a 90% discount or an 80% discount. Then they put it out there to the pre-sale, and they use the pre-sale guys to leverage their position so that they're already in front. Then they go out to the public sale, and so really, we might think we make a couple of bucks from the pre-sale, but the big guys, they're making the big bucks. And people that are saying, we sold out in 30 seconds or a minute, it's just because they're already sold out. That's why. Yeah. So we're a bit different because we believe that everyone deserves a fair and honest go at this. And so we went out there to about 1,000 individuals. We raised around 3.5 million. We don't have any bonuses. We don't have any big institutional investors. So if you look at most ICOs now, or most token sales as they're called, when they hit the market, a lot of them are just going to plummet because they're that heavily undersold and that many discounted. It's insane. Yeah. And so what that means is when you do that, then you're relying on the overall growth in Bitcoin to bring the value of your coin up. That's all you're relying on, because you haven't got any substance as a business, and you've given that many discounts away that people can sell a hell of a lot cheaper than the public because they've got 90% discounts and they're still making money. So we avoided all that. We went out. It's Nugget calls it the fairest ICO in the world. We've gone out. There's no discounts, no bonuses. We sell every aggregate 7.5 cents. Same in the pre-sale. Same in the public sale, which we're done. We've got another 3 or 4 weeks to run. We raised, let's say, 3.5 million in the pre. I think we've raised maybe another couple of million now, ticking along. Yeah. The sale's going great. Look, it's obviously tough times at the minute given the market fluctuation, but all in all, we're happy. We're really ramping up our marketing, and we've got some pilots now with the largest guys in West Virginia brewery. We've been talks. I just had a talk with a company just then. I can't mention any names, but chances are, if you've had a chocolate bar in the last day, you will have touched their produce. That's how big they are. So people are starting to take notice, and we've got a great team that has. The guy that was in here just then was the former head of AWB, Landmark. Yeah, he was the guy that put Landmark, the largest deal in Australia in Australian history at the time, together. Really nice guy. Okay, so he's on our team. We've got Baden Uren from Bond University. He's a professor of entrepreneurship. That's what he does for a living, is get people like us to get it right. Ian Dalgleish is in agriculture for years, and anyone in agriculture knows Ian. Former head of toll holding, Pacific National. He's on our team. So we're an industry-based business that has excellent crypto people involved. So Nugget's an advisor, and Anouk Benchetti and a couple of other guys are really good. Surya, we are not a crypto team who's trying to make a business, and that's the difference. Yeah. And that's why, hopefully, and God willing, we'll succeed where others fail, because they're not a business.
So for anyone that's interested in the project, the best way to support you is to participate in that token sale then?
Participate in the token sale. Ask questions. Jump on our Telegram. We're out there. Be aware of scam as always. Jump on our Blockgrain Telegram, or go to blockgrain.io. We've got a bounty campaign running where you can pick up some agri at the minute. We've got another good promotion coming out and very shortly around Facebook, which should be very interesting. So keep your eye out. If nothing else, jump on our Telegram. Ask questions.
Yep. Brilliant. Well, Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having us on. It was wonderful.
And all the very best of the project.
Thank you again.
Cheers.
Don't ask how it happened, but we've tapped into an audio feed from an alternate dimension where we still run the podcast, but there are some slight differences. While we're still pretty confused ourselves, we thought we'd share it with you all because, well, you'll see.
And now, it's time for Nat and Mo, the Cryptospirators, coming to you live from rainy Lisbon.
Thank you. Well, this week we return to the Bitmax versus Bitmax Pennies debate. It's been raging on social media for weeks now, and both sides seem to be claiming victory. What are your thoughts, Nat?
Well, I've got one thought, Mo, and that's a question. Why would I go off-chain where I can do things on-chain just as well, and with added security, with Bitmax Pennies?
Well, the Thunder network on Bitmax still requires you to come back to the chain to settle.
But Mo, it's convoluted and unnecessary. And on top of all that, it's a Rothschild scam. We all know this. Rothschilds, central bankers, they're all up to their neck in it. This is how they take over the blockchain.
Well, let's stay grounded here. There's no evidence of takeover.
What, Blockstream? Censorship on Reddit? People saying Craig Wright isn't Satoshi Sakamoto, Mo? I mean, I could go on. What more do you want?
Look, let's just focus on the technology here before you embarrass yourself. And Bitmax is working. Thunder is working.
Mo, the question I have for you is it truly keeping with Natoshi's true vision?
Well, no one really knows what Natoshi's true vision is, Nat.
I now read from the sacred white paper of Satoshi Sakamoto, page 2, verse 1.
Ooh.
We define an electronic coin as a chain of digital signatures. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of the previous transaction and the public key of the next owner and adding these to the end of the coin. A payee can verify the signatures to verify the chain of ownership. Thus spake Satoshi, bless his soul.
Yes, but that doesn't mean he would have continued on.
The holy Bitcoin P2P eCash paper, Mo, line 16, comment 3 would beg to differ. It says, I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer and with no trusted third party. Thus spake Satoshi, bless his soul.
Yes, but...
Mo, the blessed Bitcoin talk thread entitled Rescalability on 14 June 2010. Natoshi says, I anticipate there will never be more than 100,000 nodes, probably less. It will reach an equilibrium where it's not worth it for more nodes to join in. The rest will be lightweight clients, which could be millions. This is the important part, Mo. At equilibrium size, many nodes will be server farms with 1 or 2 network nodes that feed the rest of the farm over a LAN. Thus spake Natoshi, Mo. Thus spake Natoshi. Natoshi's true vision.
Oh, I give up. Let's call Jordan so we can get some sense on this show.
Hello?
Jordan? If you know someone who might enjoy the podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends.
You can find us at FOMO.show.
You can join our Telegram at FOMO.show/Telegram. We've moved from Slack.
You can follow us on Twitter at _FOMO_show.
You can find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/The FOMO Show.
And YouTube at FOMO.show/YouTube.
That's it for us here at The FOMO Show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like our show, please do feel free to subscribe in your podcast app of choice or via our YouTube channel. I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
And as always, remember,
no FOMO. Testing.
yeah, we are good.
Lovely.
We are good.
Mate,
We're good.
do you want to know why we're good?
Why are we good?
Because we just ate some cheese.
We had a lot of cheese.
I think it was Danish smoked cheddar.
Oh, it was so good.
Oh, that little and we were a bit fancy. We were celebrating episode 20, not purposefully, but we accidentally had cheese and prosciutto How do you pronounce prosciutto? Prosciutto.
Prosciutto?
Mate, that was so tasty.
Yeah, no, mate. Cheese, prosciutto, beer.
It's what inspired you to come up with the idea of a cheese-based stablecoin.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're trying to market all these stable coins to everyone, but I think to get it over the line, we're going to need to peg it to something that has some real meaning to people, you know? And so I thought, well, let's have cheese coin and let's peg it to the value of 1 kg of cheddar.
Take my money. But what about when we have disagreements over the core asset? Do we
fork the coin?
We have camembert. We have cheddar. And then I guess we got the Stilton. Like, there's a very small percentage on the side.
People come in and want blue vein, or imagine that, the blue vein stablecoin.
Yikes! Just alone in the corner chatting to each other.
Cheese coin.
It's a thing.
Well,
it's going to be a thing.
Everyone loves cheese, man.
It's so true.
Everyone loves cheese.
I'd back that.
I'd back that too.
Let's start an ICO.
Let's spin it up.
And then create a product at the end. I mean, we'll take your money.
We'll build a really nice website.
Yeah. So if you're thinking, if you want to invest in cheese coin, hit us up.
Cheese coin.
The future
in a world. Broadcasting from Brisbane, Australia, this is the FOMO Show.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe.
Mate, I feel like you're an imposter. And a very good one.
That's nothing like you. I am nothing like you.
You what, mate? I did not know what horses for courses meant until just now.
Oh, really?
Different people are suited for different jobs. Oh, right. I thought it was like main courses, like food.
No,
horses are for race courses.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. I was still stuck on that.
Mate.
This is like watching the news in French. It's got a nice little voice, but it's not a human.
It's not
like I talk to Google like it's my friend, but you can't trust it.
No, you can't. And it can be hacked at any
and
moment.
She's so nice, and I like her.
And
and it's just such a problem.
Man,
oh,
you know?
Why Google? I just want to love you.
Why you have to be mad? It's only Google Home.